No, we're good. I'm good. Are you guys good? Are you ready?
Pineapple pen.
I yeah, I
Can we
think
get
I'm
a
good.
little shake? You know you want to, Ahmed. You just did it.
No.
Come
Give me a little shoulder shake.
on. Let's do it. Shimmy. It's called a shimmy. Shimmy, shimmy,
Here we
shimmy.
go.
There we go.
Look at
All right.
that. Look at that.
Beulah. All right. Okay. Here we are. Here we are. Finally. I feel like we've been doing this so many times, and it's finally. Is this the final time? The final test? I feel like we've
Third
been
time's the
testing.
charm.
I guess so. I just need to remember to mute the mic, touch some buttons over here. But yeah, here we are. I wanted to say good morning, but good afternoon, fam. How are we doing?
Let's go. Like I said, third time's a charm. We're doing good.
Yeah, all good. We've had our mess ups and our mistakes, but it's part of the process.
Had our fair share of cries, emotional damage, technical issues. Needless to say, we actually have recorded a whole hour-long episode, and then we had mic issues. That is on me. I'm sorry, but here we are. Then we finally, hopefully, it works out this time. Let's see. I think it should be
And some
fine.
of us forgot to put the recording off. So
Some of us
it's a
forgot to put the
13-hour
stop the
recording.
recording. 16 gigs of silence and looking at your, I don't know, your beautiful arrangement behind you.
Yeah.
It's a learning curve, guys, but we're here. We're here. Episode 1. Let's go.
All right, but I think let's start with, most importantly, the introduction. So, welcome everyone who's watching to the very first episode of Control Alt Discuss. I should not make the mistake of saying delete because that's not what it is. So this is just basically the three of us, myself, Tilted Donuts. We have Luna Wolf on my left-hand side, Amba or Ahmed on my right-hand side. And we are just going to unapologetically talk about our very own perspectives and opinions of everything happening in the gaming industry, which is very exciting. We have a lot to say. We are very opinionated to some extent. We call ourselves avid gamers, and we are very passionate about everything related to this topic and topics and the industry itself. So, yeah. I think let's just basically do like a quick introduction, just maybe something interesting. I think let's all mention our favorite game of all times. So again, my name is Tilted Donuts. My favorite game is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I'm a big Cassandra fan. Luna?
Hi, guys. I'm Luna. You can also call me Kate. But yeah, choosing my favorite game of all time, that's really tough. I'm just going to go with the recent one. Well, kind of recent, but it's definitely Horizon Zero Dawn. Absolutely loved that game.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, favorite game. I think that's an episode of its own. Um, but if I was gun to my head, Mass Effect trilogy, probably.
That's three
Yeah.
games. That's three.
Three.
You have
Yeah.
to choose
Well,
one
wait.
at least
Well,
out of the three.
well.
What's your
It.
favorite Mass Effect game?
Oh shit. Perhaps Mass Effect 2. Um.
Cliche.
Yeah.
Why are you so
Okay.
typical?
The Mass Effect games are meant to be played like as a whole. It's not. Your save is carrying over into the next game, so you can treat it as one game.
Can you? Maybe we should have an episode about that. But we haven't even finished the Mass Effect trilogy, so I don't think we have an opinion on that yet.
Hey, okay, we are not too bad, and I think we've done what, one and a half. We're almost done with
One
two,
and a half.
one and a half, and but that's not a bad choice. I'm actually surprised, Amit. I thought you would be into your dino stuff. your
Oh, that's my cozy game.
Jurassic
That's like where I go
Evolution.
to, you know, um, And because of like amazing features like quick resume, you can just easy go from like, something that's really terrifying and stressful to, back to my park. Things are cozy. Things are chill.
You know,
Um,
Xbox players always they start off very brave in the very early stages of some discussion. They always just want to get their stabs in before it's too late. But we see you, Xbox. We see you. Us Sony ponies over here will just keep to ourselves for now. We'll rip you apart later.
You know, loading screens aren't that long, right? Especially on the newer gen consoles. It's like 3 seconds and then you're in the game.
you say that, right? But when you watching Netflix or when you on Disney, you just browsing through all these shows, and you can jump in anywhere, wherever you left off. That's what quick resume gives you. When every time I put on my
Crick,
PlayStation, I'm
crick.
like, oh, I forgot what this was like. And now I'm playing Alan Wake, which I love. But yeah, I forgot what that was like.
Very unpopular opinion. Probably I haven't played Alan Wake yet. Well, number two. But I heard only good things about it. I heard it's absolutely fantastic. However, the first one um, bored me to death. But I feel like this will
No,
tie into a completely different episode. This is going to start a whole debate, especially when it comes to the horror genre, which I do think it is October, okay? It is, probably, a big part of the world's favorite months, especially when it comes to Halloween, horror stuff. I'm a big horror fan.
Spooktober.
Spooktober, there we go. And I think essentially we will definitely do another episode 2 coming up. I think we should talk about. I have some horror games. I have a lot of opinions about a lot of horror games. I've played many, 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 many. And I think Amit, you're also very passionate about some horror games. Luna, on the other hand,
Absolute no from me. Nope. I barely got through The Last of Us. That was my cap, I think.
horror movies also not a thing for her. So I think Amit, between you and me, although I mean Bioshock, we're playing Bioshock now for a whole completely different reason, which we'll disclose at the end of all of this. But that's also kind of a horror thriller genre, right?
mm.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
creepy.
Bioshock's creepy. I won't give it the same kind of horror treatment as I'd give some of the other stuff, like your Outlasts and your um, Alien Isolation, which we have to get to at some point. But I love the first Alan Wake, and I don't know if you can tell I love books, and the first Alan Wake had that running through it very consistently, and I thought that was very cool. Um, Interestingly, the second Alan Wake, got a lot of shit from the anti-woke crowd uh, for having
I didn't know that.
um, for having like a person of color and a chick as one of the lead.
Sounds awful.
Um, but I mean that is become the is representative of the zeitgeist of the gaming culture right now. That this kind of woke spotting and this kind of um, every time a trailer drops, they are out there fine combing through it to find something to rage about, to find something to freak out about.
There's
So it's
something wrong
opened
with
up this.
every game that comes out. There's never
Hmm.
a perfect game. Maybe Silk Song was probably the only game that people didn't have a problem with. Although people did say it was too hard and then the devs made it easier.
But can we quickly just mention that because I actually had a brief. I was thinking about it briefly this morning, and I was thinking about recent games that released. We'll get into it a little bit more shortly. I mean, but I think Silk Song was quite the hype when it released. How long ago was it? 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
Yeah, very,
Was
very recent.
recently, and I mean, people talked about it. It was probably the most talked about thing in a good way, for like the We
The
haven't
last
really
10 years.
the
The
last
last
10
10 years.
years, yeah, the
It's
gaming
been
industry didn't really have a lot of good things to talk about, over the past, month, or not month, year, 2 years, because it's just been re- review bombing and etc. And that's also what we're going to get into shortly. But um, Silk Song, the hype was there and it was surprisingly positive. Apart from the fact that it's probably the hardest game out there at the moment, I'm definitely going to test that theory. But essentially, yeah. And then all of a sudden, the hype just died. I haven't heard anything about Silk Song this whole week and a half. Like, it was there, the most talked about thing in gaming for a very long time, and then all of a sudden it just died out. It feels like everything is kind of like, do hypes really blow over that quickly?
Um, I think that when you're saying that there wasn't something this year, there was Claire Obscure, the Expedition 33
There
that
were
we
so many games.
My bad. Yeah.
that
Okay.
was
Death
amazing.
Stranding
And I think up
2.
until Hollow Knight, that kind of like was the discussion for the year, that this could be a double A studio that comes out and against every expectation of what a game of the year kind of game could be, this happens and it was amazing and the response to it was amazing. And um, seeing that there's this communities that have formed around the game in such a short time is really exciting, not only for the future of the studio and the future of that IP, but I think also what it means for just smaller studios in general. That you don't have to, doesn't have to be like so many hundreds of millions of dollars and like people waiting for like 15 years for the game to come out. Um, yeah, sorry, I had to just get out
No,
my
no, no.
my
Get it off
Clay
your
Obscure.
shoulders. I know you have obsessions with the game, which is fine. I still have to play it, and I've seen some good things. I briefly read some stuff this week, but I can't remember what it was. So I need to go back into the articles and see kind of, there's some updates that I think, etc. about Claire Obscure. Okay, but yeah, I think my comment sounded very uneducated, and like, obviously there were a lot of good things to talk about. I just like the amount of hype that Silk Song received was like immense. Like, it was insane. Like, I mean, every possible Souls like streamer, tried it out, to kind of see, how difficult it is. I think it was kind of like the test of, is it really so difficult as people say? And everyone wanted to test that theory. So I think that there was just a lot of talking points around it, and especially because a game such as Silk Song, it was like, what is it called? Like a platformer? What is it described as?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
Metroidvania,
yeah, Metroidvania.
Souls-like platformer kind of thing. Yeah,
Genre
that's pretty
thing.
much.
Hmm.
But I think what happened with Silk Song is like people really lean into like hype online and people hype each other up, and this whole Silk Song thing, like it was just an internet hype. People just made a big thing about it because these devs were like, okay, we're working on this game, but we're going to take our time. We're not going to rush it. We're just going to do it at our own pace. We're not going to give you a release date or anything. And every time there was some sort of like reveal or event where they're going to showcase new trailers, everyone was like, "Where's Silk Song? Where's Silk Song?" Because that was like the internet hype in the comments. Like everyone was just waiting for Silk Song to appear, and it eventually did. And they didn't even like. They were just like, "Cool, it's coming out finally, and it's coming out in a week." Like there was no like build up or anything. They were just like, "Cool, Silk Song's coming out next week. It's done," and everyone was like, whoa. And I think that the hype in the beginning was just like, oh my goodness, it's releasing now. Everyone wants to play it. And then they broke all of the stores because everyone wanted to buy it at the same time. There was no pre orders at all. Nobody could pre order the game. You just had to wait until it was released officially and buy the game. And that's why all the stores crashed. So I think people just lean into hype, and that's how, gamers get FOMO with the initial hype. Everyone wants to play the game that everyone's playing at the moment because everyone's talking about it. And I don't think it's a very long game. I think it's maybe like a 40-hour game. And people are probably either gave up halfway because it's too hard, or they finished it. So yeah, I think that's
I think essentially the point is it's been refreshing to see such positive feedbacks, you know, from gamers in general. You know, it's been a very challenging couple of years, especially when it comes to gamings and new games releasing. It feels like games have just been poorly either developed or not, you know, released, not 100% complete. It's just been creating a lot of like negativity, and there's been a lot of negativity for the past 3 years. I mean, we can talk a lot, well, past 5 years even, you know. I think essentially gaming review bombings, it's been overwhelmingly much. So you know, it's been like I said, it's been refreshing seeing good responses from the consumer. You know, video games such as Clear Obscure, Death Stranding to, you know, Silk Song release. Like there's some positivity, and it's nice. I think we've been waiting for it for such a long time. You know, I mean, if we look at some of the games that's really been receiving, well, really suffered. I mean, talking about some of the biggest gaming release fails of the 20th century, starting off with PlayStation's Concord. My goodness, that game lasted a mere 2 weeks, and it was pretty hyped, you know, especially with these showcases. I think, you know, showcases are each platform's way of, you know, just, you know, kind of getting the consumers, the gaming consumers, hyped about a lot of things. And a lot of games haven't been received well, and then you get something like Concord and it just failed miserably. But again, you know, if we look at the reasons, like it's a very saturated, you know, exhausted market, you know, releasing something into a very already competitive, you know, genre, it's unfortunate. And they completely closed that studio. I think they spent like 400 million or billion, you know, on that game. Let me just double check what it was. Give me 2 seconds. 400 million loss, which is a lot of money. And this complete studio, the studio completely closed down. And then you get something like Redfall. I mean, the amount of money that Xbox or Microsoft, you know, put into to market and PR that game was astounding, staggering even, if you will. And they made a 200 million loss, essentially. It's still kind of available, but yeah, it's been received
Mm.
poorly. I played that game for like a solid hour. I think it was way more than it was necessary, or gave it way more time than it was necessary. And yeah, and then we kind of like Suicide Squad. We have Skull and Bones. I was really excited for Skull and Bones. I think everyone kind of wanted a nice pirate-like game. Apart from,
Mm.
what is the Xbox version? Um,
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of
Sea of
Thieves.
Thieves.
Fantastic game. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed playing that. But like more on a realistic, you know, art
I
style.
think wasn't Skull and Bones trying to pull in the Assassin's Creed Black Flag
Mm.
community? I think that was kind of their focus. They were trying to, you know, revive that whole Black Flag. I've never played Black Flag, so I don't know, but I think that's the idea that I got with Skull and Bones, and people were really hyped about it, and it was a massive disappointment, like most recent Ubisoft games. But that's a whole other conversation.
Well, I think it
Mm.
kind of ties in with, you know, what we are trying to achieve here, at the end of the day. Yeah, and I mean, so apart from these massive games, I'm just going to call a list. Like, again, Suicide Squad, that was also another massive fail. We had Marvel's Avengers. I haven't really played that much. No, not much. I haven't played it at all. Saints Row. Look, I'm a big Saints Row fan since I can remember. I started playing it on my Xbox 360, and wow, 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 wow. I have no words. That game was, it was bad. Lord of the Rings. I think the last time we had a decent Lord of the Rings game, if we all remember way back on the PlayStation 2, you know, had some decent Lord of the Rings games.
That Gollum game, was it?
Hey.
Gollum. I think
Yeah,
that was what it was called.
yeah. No, but that Gollum game was made by like the same studio that made that King Kong one that came out.
There,
Um,
Really?
and
there
I
was a
think
King Kong game.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think both it and Gollum were like competing for like the worst games. You know,
Worst
but I
games
feel
ever
like
made.
they just churn out these licensed games with like not much care or um, but
Like all
just
the
to have a
Pokemon
licensed
games.
game out there and kind of cash in on the license. I'm trying to remember the name of the studio. It was something that kind of made it sound like okay, that makes sense for you to be like this, production line of just licensed stuff. Um, but hey, uh, the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War games, those are pretty cool, especially the Nemesis thing. But that's also a bad thing because they then went to restrict Nemesis to just them, and other studios can't use the Nemesis engine, which really sucks because it's so cool and it makes what would be just another bad guy for you to beat up. It makes this into like a unique interaction, and as a result, everyone playing these games has their own experience. You know, um, and as the tech goes further, what they could do with the Nemesis system would be really cool. To see it in other games. But now to just see it get shelved until I don't know another Shadow of War game or whatever, is very disappointing.
I think essentially, yeah. I mean, with the Shadows of Mordor, and those were great games, but it did become very repetitive. I think essentially what we all wanted was, I don't know, what was that? What was that Lord of the Rings game called? I think Return of the King or something, if I'm not mistaken. Back that was a fantastic game, and you had to fight these endless amounts of skeletons. The skeleton kings, soldiers. Forgive me if I have the names wrong. I can't recall everything accurately, but those were great games. And even what was it called? The Age of Empires like strategy.
Oh, Battle for Middle Earth, I
Battle
think it
for
was.
Middle Earth. My goodness,
Yeah,
those were great. I miss those. I really wish they could remake those. It's seeing that, everything we do these days are remakes or remasters, of every possible existing classic game, in the existence of gaming. They should really, they fail to remake these, but also I guess it's kind of like copyright and who owns the games and, studios, etc. I think there's more legalities involved here than, you know, that we can possibly understand. But yeah, but then we get something like Gollum, and we get excited because, give me something Harry Potter, give me something Lord of the Rings. I'm excited. You have me sold just by mentioning it. And then you get something like that, and wow, the amount of disappointment, it's overwhelming. Then you get, I think there was like this. The Shire game that also released not too long ago. It was like a cozy game.
hmm.
What was it called? Tales of the Shire. Okay, that game, I think it did get some negative reviews, but I think mostly the feedback was pretty good. I think if you knew what you were expecting in that game, you wouldn't be disappointed. But I think a lot of people had a different expectation, and that's why they were disappointed.
Yeah, okay, so that one at least picked up, but it wasn't received well in the beginning. Sorry for the mishap on the
Yeah, I
switching the
was
screens. Just
I
bear
was
with me.
beginning to wonder.
Just we it's our first try, we'll do it. There's a lot to think focus on here. But yeah, I guess okay. So that initially started off negatively, and was then essentially received positively, not overwhelmingly much so. But yeah, it's sad. And then then apart from the games that it's not received well, then you get stuff like review bombing. Ahmed, you mentioned Assassin's Creed Shadows, especially for its wokeness. Then you get you know when they announced Assassin's Creed Shadows, it essentially came down to why is there why did they make the protagonists the protagonists and I can completely understand from one point of view like why they did it, well, why people were upset. If you played something like in feudal Japan or that plays often in feudal Japan, you kind of want Japanese people to play with. And I think it was kind of a very sneaky curveball from Ubisoft's side, to bring in, one of the only black samurai known to be recorded, I think, in their histories. As far as I understand it, it was factually correct. And then you have the female, and it again, it raised so many controversies where people were just generally upset, and I think to some extent, unnecessarily so. But then the game released and the game was well received. I had some other issues with it, especially with, first of all, it had an initial release date and then it got delayed, purely because they announced the PlayStation 5 Pro and they wanted to optimize the game. This was one of the very first games that would be optimized for the PlayStation 5 Pro, and I was like, okay, fine. I'm okay with delays and that. And essentially, what I received and my experience on the base PlayStation 5 was unfortunate. Um, I played a couple of hours of it, not because the storyline was bad per se, but just because you could see this game was now completely just it should be experienced on either a high-end gaming PC or the PlayStation 5 Pro. Um, it's either there was some technical issues, I don't know, in the safe haven side where you can kind of build your own base, and then the cinematics, if you played on a performance mode, the cinematics looked awful, but if you did it on fidelity mode, it looked absolutely stunning, but then your gameplay wasn't, was awful. And yeah, it was kind of, I just stopped playing, and I haven't returned to the game yet because of waiting for it to be patched, which it has. So I haven't really had a chance to look at it again. So at this point, I don't have a very overwhelmingly positive um, experience performance wise, but I think the game itself was probably, the storyline is very good. Then you also get the DLC that released, and there was also some mixed reviews on, and it was also, not overwhelmingly negative, also not overwhelmingly positive, like just generally mixed. And it kind of leaves you wondering, like, is it really worth it? Are we really getting to a point where we are just either get put off by games just by overall quality, what we receive, stories, what is it? And wokeness. These days, people are very much against wokeness. I guess, it could be worded and titled, in many different ways and perceived in many different ways. I'm all okay for it. Sorry, and I kind of want to tie this Shadows in with Ghost of Yotei. So Ghost of Yotei released, and we were all like, is it going to be like the same? And there was a lot of controversies. It almost borderline being review bombed. It was review bombed, if I'm not mistaken. After the first announcement, if not, it was a lot of concerns and controversies about the main protagonist, etc., etc. And
There was some backlash with Ghost of Yotei. I think one of the devs tweeted something that the community was not very happy about, and the game received a lot of backlash. People started canceling their pre-orders because they didn't support what this person said on Twitter or X. You guys can take a Google on what the tweet said. And people started canceling their pre-orders, but it seems like the general feedback from Ghost of Yotei is absolutely brilliant. I think it got a higher Metacritic rating than Ghost of Tsushima, which is exactly what you want for a sequel. So congrats to
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of the criticism of Ghost of Yotei prior to it coming out was this recurring narrative of the uglification of female characters in games. And ironically, a lot of the people who were making memes about Assassin's Creed Shadows prior to that releasing were now making memes where they were praising Assassin's Creed Shadows, but comparing it to Ghost of Yotei. That showing the female character in Shadows versus the female character in Yotei. Um, And look, man, it's just because this kind of grifting industry has emerged where content creators can, you know, sift through these things, find something to rage about, and then make half hour, stuff online where they just rage over the industry going woke and this kind of forced integration of these cultural concepts and that into gaming. Um, yeah, it's very frustrating and it's very, um, but it's been around for a while. Like so much so that Dragon Age Veilguard, which I mean, you guys remember the fallout of a Dragon Age Veilguard, that was considered Gamergate 2.0. It wasn't even like it's just part of Gamergate because Gamergate happened almost 10 years ago now, and this is also for listeners who don't know about Gamergate. It was um, it was more or less a mass harassment campaign that was framed as a consumer revolt. They were targeting and isolating female figures within the industry, but then framing it as a concern over ethics in gaming journalism to say that some of these female developers were having illicit relationships with gaming journalists like writers at Kotaku and stuff. And they were doing this to get favorable reviews on their games. And this was just conspiratorial nonsense. But when you have, this kind of mobilized groups and these mobilized communities who are angry and who are feeling like it's their way of life under attack, um, they became very vocal and they became very effective at um, doxing these women, making threats towards these women, even making forums and groups to coordinate harassment and to coordinate certain attacks. um, and it hit the mainstream. Once you had, I think it was Adam Baldwin, um, one of the lesser Baldwin bros. Sorry. Um, like you have this Hollywood celebrity tweeting about it, and he was actually the one who put out this hashtag Gamergate, and that saw it leap into the mainstream and catch on like fire. And then people who didn't know about the harassment that was happening underneath it start getting caught on too, because now they latching onto this narrative of ethics in gaming journalism more than they are aware of the kind of anti-female energy beneath the surface. I mean, some of them were very much aware of that, and probably why they were there. But yeah, a lot of people got into the Gamergate circle without really knowing where it really came from. But this then just became a pattern that we saw with attitudes towards upcoming gaming releases thereafter. And then review bombing kind of emerged from that as like a tool of consumer revolt or consumer action. And it's not to say that every instance of review bombing was just a bunch of angry guys being angry, because Star Wars Battlefront 2 was a tragedy when it released, and the kind of review bombing helped to put pressure on EA and the developers to really reverse the whole microtransaction mania that that game was. Um, yeah, I've been talking for a bit now.
No, you can keep talking.
Uh,
I think probably one of the more notable games that got review bombed was The Last of Us Part 2, particularly around um, when there were leaks. Leaks, some of the contents, main story plots and, important points in the video game got leaked out. And I think it's unfortunate. I think we, for those who have either watched the series or even sorry, let me just change it here. For those who even played the game or both, it's unfortunate. I mean, I remember playing it. I fortunately haven't seen anything leak yet because I pre-ordered. I had like the collector's edition, you know, and I couldn't wait. And first up it was Joel, and the whole twist with Abby. Um, Those were some very important parts in the game, and fortunately, I got to experience it without being exposed to any leakages, and yeah, I can understand why the game initially got review bombed because of that. I mean, it was pivotal points in the game's storyline. Um, it's unfortunate, and also then again, with the LGBT stuff, I think yeah, you can kind of take it where it comes from, but yeah, I guess generally, with these review bombers, it's usually a minority or the small cancel cultures that whether it's conservatives or whatever the case is, like far left or far right groups, etc. It happens, and it just seems like it got to a point where gamers in general just became too opinionated, rightfully so. I mean, we spend a lot of money on video games. Thinking back to, I'm going to touch base back on Skull and Bones, for example, and also Star Wars Outlaws. Some of the more expensive games released, both by Ubisoft, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and I mean, I think Star Wars Outlaws was probably the most expensive game that we've bought, and it was just such a disappointment. Not because of the, I would think the overall quality of the game was lacking, but I guess it was something that I could kind of push aside and ignore. Um, but there was some other stuff with regards to Star Wars Outlaws. But I think that game also got a lot of backlash because of the main protagonist, and the way she looks, and she's not the most prettiest video game character, out there. And
That goes it goes back to what Ahmed was saying about like this uglification of like women in video games, and every single time they release or a new trailer or a new video game, especially when women are represented and they're not this idealistic, beautiful human, I think games like Stellar Blade have really shaken up the gaming industry because they're like, oh, this is what we want. This is what we want to see. Why do you want to bring games like Fable
Mm,
when there's so much backlash? I think there was also an issue with Witcher 4, with Siri. There was like an initial model, and there was some sort of
yeah.
issue where people were like, oh no, she's too ugly or something like that. I don't know how true that was, but I just remember like the initial, response on the internet is just like, oh, woke, I'm not going to touch anything that Sweet Baby Ink touches because, they just want to cater to this like wokeness. um so yeah, it's a real problem in the gaming industry, and games like Stellar Blade, it didn't really help our case over here.
No, it didn't. It really didn't, and I think it kind of made things more complicated, than it has to be. But to get back to my initial point that I was trying to make, we spend a lot of money on these video games. Video games become all the more expensive, and again, rightfully so. But essentially, we end up with games that are incomplete. The last few games that we've bought, there's always some form of patch update, that has to make the game better, because it's released. They couldn't, 100% release it in a condition that is 100%. I think the last game that actually was released, Luna, help me out here, that was fully complete was, I think, Claire Obscure. That was one of the very few games that actually released 100% complete, and it was fantastic.
Donkey Kong Bonanza.
Donkey Kong Bonanza on Nintendo. Although the Nintendo released a couple of good games, I think even Mario Kart didn't do that bad, and it was very well received. And at the end of the day, we spend a lot of money. We are passionate about it, but taking it back years ago, all right. I remember when gamers were seen as just the weirdos, the strange people, those who have no life. You can kind of we can unroll the Elder Scrolls, with the amount of reasons why or gamers were strange back then. We weren't really part of the cool club, and I feel like the perspectives have changed, and the world is seeing gamers in a completely different, putting us in a completely different light, and it's what we wanted. We didn't want to be seen as the weird crowd. We wanted to be seen as the cool guys, which we are now. I mean, gaming has picked up, immensely over the past 10
It's
years.
bigger than the TV industry.
It's bigger than the TV industry. This is where the money is. Esports, it's really, I mean, wow, the esports is a completely different ball game, but we wanted to not be weird. And, we have finally achieved that. And now and we wanted sequels and, everything else, from our much loved, most loved video games. I remember starting playing Dragon Age Origins, and I was like, and I finished the game, and I always said to myself, I really hope they bring out a second one. I don't know if it's going to be possible, because I didn't understand much about the video game industry back then. I think it was 2009. It was pretty stupid, and uneducated. I still had to live. And the same with Assassin's Creed, the very first Assassin's Creed with Altair. I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever played. You can climb on buildings, you can ride horses. I mean, you can sneak, you can stab, like stealth and assassinate people. I should probably not say that, it's going to get marked.
I think back then the bar was very low. Now the bar is high.
Unaliving.
Unaliving, there we go. Let's use that one. And, we all hoped, for follow-ups, and we essentially got it, and then more follow-ups released, and then we started becoming upset because let's jump to Assassin's Creed Origins. It was nice. They changed how you brought in some leveling up systems and extra mechanics, etc., which made it more cool. And I mean, we all wanted to run around the pyramids, inside, exploring the tombs, looking at Sphinx, going on a camel's back, through the desert, etc., etc. But then the complaints started. The complaints started that we are moving away from the overall idea of look and feel of original Assassin's Creed games. And I feel like we wanted them to bring out more of these kind of games, but we can't stay the same the whole time. We have to evolve with times. We have to, otherwise it's just going to be the same story being told, just in different colors. And we wanted them to be more creative with the stories that they told, the places that we visit, and still kind of keep in line. Moving it forward to, I think it was Assassin's Creed Mirage, because I think Valhalla was the final straw for a lot of fans of the franchise. Moving it to Mirage, they took us back to original Assassin's Creed roots, and then we got Shadows, going back to Shadows, and you kind of get the best of both. Now you can choose. I don't really want to be put in a position to choose. Some might disagree, some would like that, and I think some actually appreciated that. But yeah, so we kind of came from being the weird people or the weird crowd to being the cool kids, and we just wanted more video games to play, and all we do now is complain about the video games that we get to play. Is it just having too many options, having too much say? And I think the internet also created a space where people just feel that they have to complain about everything. If you don't like it, I'm one of those people, like, if you don't like it, stop playing it. You're not forced, although you have spent money on it, and I feel like it's kind of a catch-22 year. You pay money for something, especially a franchise that you're really passionate about. Star Wars, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I spent a lot of money on Outlaws. I was disappointed. I played 25 hours, and that was it. I haven't paid it any more mind, than necessary. Shadows, I stopped playing it after 5 hours, not because of the storyline that was bad, but I've mentioned my reasons earlier. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like, what do we actually want? We want to move ahead with times. We can't just stay stagnant, with the same ideas. Male protagonist, Witcher, God of War. And please, this is a very unpopular opinion. I'm just kind of using it. Spider-Man, if we look back, okay, maybe, Miles Morales was something completely different. We changed a little bit there, which is good. We changed, and change is good. But then there was some LGBT stuff, and Morales, and we had more complaints. And at the end of the day, we want to kind of move away from the same old stuff. But now also we give new stuff, but then it's also not okay. It's not accepted. So essentially, we want a lot of things, but we also don't know what we actually want, and then we end up with
Hmm.
review bombs. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's interesting that you mentioned this kind of transformation of the gamer from being like this isolated, um, like outside the mainstream, to now becoming so central to the mainstream. And on the one hand, that's because the industry went from being this kind of very niche thing to becoming this very dominant thing, where games cost so much more to develop, and the tech that is being used in gaming is also being used outside of gaming. Um, Interestingly, one of the things that did happen with the rise of social media and gamers now being given a platform to share their voices, um, and also like these gaming forums that existed on your 4chans and even your darker places like your 8chans, and then not that 4chan itself isn't dark. Um, but what started happening was you started seeing marketers, you started seeing political campaigners surveil these groups and realize that, you know what, these guys are capable of being mobilized. These guys are angry, um, and these guys could be a political force. And what we started seeing was the mainstream establishment start to embrace these groups and start to even speak their language in order to kind of draw them towards particular sides of the political divide. In fact, Steve Bannon, who would be going to be Donald Trump's campaign manager, he himself was a gamer and sort of in the gaming industry, in the sense that he had a partnership with this Chinese firm where they used to um, sort of like play World of Warcraft and get like particular items or level up particular characters and then sell them, right? And then this guy, who himself was a you know flagrant propagandist, becomes Trump's campaign manager. He sees the Gamergate movement. He sees all of this kind of angry energy and realizes that these guys would make conservative voters. Like if these guys did vote, they would probably vote conservative. And you saw them start to orient themselves and their political messaging towards these people. Um, and we've now seen gaming become so central to the political apparatus, so much so that now, Saudi bought EA, and uh, yeah, it's like this thing has really, really taken a hold, and its kind of presence in the social political discourse is pretty overwhelming. And the kind of woke spotting and the kind of feeling that your way of life is under threat has become central to the messaging that's been given not only within these kind of angry gaming communities, but also within the kind of general political discourse. Um, yeah, and a lot of it is to blame on, I mean, social networks and the way that the algorithmic organization of information is designed to resonate with you on a emotional psychological level. Whatever gets engagement from you will keep appearing in your feed, whether that engagement is positive, whether it makes you feel like shit and you engaging because you're just writing angry shit in the comments. Whatever it is, it's going to keep coming. um, yeah, and look, a lot of it has to do with how we as human beings process information. Like, while Gamergate is an ideological thing, the psychological is still very central. And you know, if, for example, you have a headache, right? You could decide, I'm going to take a painkiller. There's no need for you to know the ins and outs of, you know, chemistry, microbiology, or whatever other related field. You can make that decision, right? That is uh, sort of a heuristic. It's these kind of mental shortcuts that we can take because in a complex society with complex decision making and complex technologies, we can depend on one another. I can depend on this that the stormwater engineer has done the stormwater engineering, and we can trust on their expertise when it comes to certain things, right? Um, So we have this ability to quickly process information, to make these kind of mental shortcuts. The problem is that can easily lead us to biases, and our brain is very capable of filling the gaps where we don't actually have information. We can do like a fun little exercise right now, right? Like I can tell you unrelated words, and your brain will try and make sense of it. Your brain will try to, and you might have, please, whatever your responses are, do share, but you might have
Are we playing
a
that
kind
game
of
already?
visceral response. Oh yeah, yeah, we'll play it right now. So let's say if I say kittens massacre, right? even though even though the unrelated words, your brain will force some kind of association. If I say grandma prison, right? If I say um, toothpaste blood, or if I say, like, these things are all unrelated, but your brain is developing an association, right? So even with fragments of information, your brain will make that association for you without you even realizing it. And
I've made all the
these things,
associations, but we're not going to get into depth of into the deep side of that. Anyways, yes.
yeah, no, so these kind of responses are called heuristics, right? These are heuristic responses. And it, like, your mind can easily be nudged in a particular way. So heuristics, they allow us to make these quick decisions, but they're prone to being misused and they can lead to biases. For example, like one of the popular heuristics in the age of social media we see a lot is availability, right? So the more instances of something you see, the more you believe that's real. Like think about like growing up watching movies in the 90s and stuff, from shark attacks to quicksand, you maybe thought that that was going to be a real problem in your life, right? That at some point in my life, I'm going to need to learn how to survive quicksand. That's certainly something I thought. The stuff I used to watch, Indiana Jones, that kind of things. I certainly thought quicksand was going to be a big piranhas. I thought piranhas were going to be a big problem for me, and I need to figure it out. But that is the availability heuristic. And now, as you scroll through social media and you see woke game here, or this happening there, or uglified female character here, you start to feel like, holy shit, the industry is gone. They're ruining my favorite thing. And you start to get angry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to, um,
Don't you
yeah,
think it
like,
just kind of came to a point where we just decided that we can't just enjoy things anymore just to enjoy it? We all have to. We like again. I think we've said it before. We've all become very opinionated, and I'm not sure if it's just because we are adults and we've finally developed some form of logical thinking. Um, but I just feel like I'm kind of you Luna on the like I'm gonna kind of give an example here. So when a new game releases, um, or is set to release. You kind of watch the trailer, and you kind of make your own assumption about, like, wow, okay, this looks cool, or I don't think this is going to work, based on a 2 to 3 minute trailer that you see. And sometimes, like, and then you get like gameplay reveals, and this is particularly something that I try to avoid at all costs. I like to be in a position where I experience the game for the first time when I actually start it up. Luna, on the other hand, is a big fan of watching gameplay. Usually, at some of these showcases, they would. I think, like with Call of Duty, for example, when they announced Black Ops 7, they have this whole half an hour section where they took us through, everything related to, Black Ops 7 and how it's developed and what the gameplay looks like, and which is very important, especially for a game like Black Ops 7 or Call of Duty in general, because they release every year. We want to see, okay, what is going to be new this year, in comparison to the previous year, and why am I going to spend the same amount of money, if not more, than I did the previous year for something very similar? What am I actually paying for? Okay. But essentially, my decisions are based off, I like what I see. I'm gonna pay that money, and if it bites me in the ass, so be it. Okay. Not everyone is unfortunately as fortunate to be able to make such a decision. Some gamers, video games, playing video games is an expensive hobby. Okay, some people are fortunate to be able to spend money on every single release that they want, put the money down immediately. Not everyone, again, can put that money down. Then you kind of get something like Xbox Game Pass, that kind of offers something different, etc., etc. So at the end of the day, it's everyone, each to them, so each to their own, to make a decision based on what they can afford, what they can't afford, what are the possibilities for them as an individual. For me, on the other hand, I'm fortunate that I find myself in a position where I could potentially pay for every release, and this is not to brag or anything, it's just what it is. But that's where my money goes, to video games. But again, like if Dragon Age releases, for example, Veilguard, as much as it failed as a fourth installment of the series, or the franchise, I still hands down put money down on it. Luna watched the gameplay videos. I didn't want to see it. I wanted to experience it for the first time ever, and then I would base my decision on it. I'd like trailers. The Witcher 4 trailer. I'm not a big Witcher fan in general. I've been asked or encouraged by someone to play The Witcher 3. Now, before that, I played Witcher 3. I tried to play it 3 times, and I've stopped playing it because I was completely bored. I think back then I thought it was one of the most boring video games out there. The same with God of War. But I was encouraged to play this video game, and thankfully so. I'm very grateful for that opportunity, because then I actually got to experience it. I'm still not overly excited about the game, but I can understand where the hype is and why people enjoy it. Then Witcher 4 trailer released, and I was like, yes, please. I don't want to see anything else. They did that little segment of, short bit of gameplay and what the video game is going to look like, etc. And like their development and design, creatives, etc. And I'm going to put money down. If that game opens for pre-order, I'm going to put money down on it. No doubt. I don't care if I wasn't a big fan of The Witcher 3 and the previous installments. Witcher 4, and I've seen enough. I don't care about more gameplay videos to try and convince me otherwise. I like what I see in the trailer. Tales of Annihilation. Is it correct? Something of Annihilation. What is that video game called?
Tides of Annihilation, isn't it?
Tides of Annihilation. Thank you. It looks amazing. But I'm gonna make like take the punch. Oh no, what is the
Take the plunge.
bite the bullets? Yeah, and that kind of just kind of buy it because it looks cool. And I don't want to be, and I try to avoid these reviews and, comments, and positivity and negativity around every single game. I want to play a game and I want to base my opinion on my own opinion and not let it be influenced by the
Mm.
industry, by its consumers, by the communities, and everything else in between. At the end of the day, I think we forget that we are gamers with our own opinions, and as of late, we get so overwhelmed by all these opinions and reviews. And I think IGN also plays a big role in that, because if IGN rates a game badly or poorly, it's probably going to be bad. But then we all know that IGN has a very big history about, when it comes to reviewing stuff. They are very, very strict and also very much biased when it comes to their what their reviews and scores are based on. So I feel like at the end of the day, we get so influenced by all these external factors that we kind of, by the time we end up playing a game, we are unable to physically make a decision for ourselves. Again,
Mm.
this is a very personal and very one-sided opinion, and this is kind of my view on playing video games. And I feel like we should just go back to our own roots as video gamers and just play things. If you don't have the money to play a video game, don't buy it. Or if you're scared that you're going to waste money, don't buy it. Wait then if you want to. Have a look at gameplay without commentary and just look at if it's something that you want to play, and then essentially
Mm.
kind of just, either then spend the money or don't spend the money. But all these external factors and parties have just been influencing the way we see games, the way we look at games, and the way we experience games. And I feel like we are doing ourselves an injustice in that space by not just, switching off, ignoring everything else, and just do it because we want to do it as video gamers. Because if you're really passionate about something, nothing else really matters. All right. But that's essentially my opinion on that matter. And I continue to enjoy games or not enjoy games, whether I wasted money or whether I, thought it was money well spent. And yes, that's it. Luna, do you have anything to add? Maybe not. Ahmed, you've been very quiet there on the in the top corner.
I think I completely agree with you and Ahmed as well. I think we are in the minority of gamers when we say that we like to formulate our own opinion about games before having an opinion. I'm not going to give into, I'm not one to look at reviews. I like seeing what general reviews are, especially on Metacritic. It's interesting to see what ratings games get nowadays. But I don't judge a game until I get to play it myself, at least 5 hours or 10 hours. But we are definitely in the minority in the gaming industry. I think a lot of gamers formulate their own opinions about games because of what they see online, what they watch their
Mm.
favorite YouTubers say. They get heavily influenced. And I know one big example is with Dragon Age Veilguard, and that ties into what Ahmed was saying about biased. And all these gamers, there was this massive backlash with Dragon Age Veilguard because all these YouTubers were saying, no, this game is absolutely shoving this whole LGBT transgender thing in your face and that you can't get out of it. And, this character just completely carries on about being transgender and you get locked into decisions or something like that. There was this
What
big
was that?
YouTuber,
What's that
um,
YouTuber's name again?
I think it was Asmongold, was it him?
Asmongold. Yes, yes, yes. That was the
Asmongold?
one. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was going on about his character got locked into being bi or transgender or something like that, and it caused this massive backlash. And I think the
Sorry, Luna, you're moving off the screen.
I, I see I moved my camera now. Whoops.
Whoops, I will just keep
I don't know.
what's
My
happening.
camera is not it's not working with me today. Anyway,
Okay,
I'll
we'll
just stand
we'll
here a
keep
little
an
bit.
eye just as still.
We'll have to fix it now. Yeah, anyway, Asmongold, so he caused this like massive issue with, this whole LGBT community. in Veilguard, and I played the game. I finished the entire game. I didn't think that this whole transgender LGBT thing was shoved in my face at all. I never felt
At
like it
no
was
point,
present.
yeah, you
It
were
was
locked
present.
in.
Hmm.
There was
Yeah.
no locking in choices. You can back out of, there was
Hmm.
always an option in a dialogue where you can just be like, no, like I don't want to talk about this now
And
or
you could
whatever.
essentially change your mind. I think only at the end game
Hmm.
you were really kind of locked in with your final decisions, and they ask you, they prompt like, do you want to proceed, knowing that the decisions that you've now made, will kind of affect the outcome. But at no point, like Luna said, there was no point that you felt obligated to continue or proceed with a specific
Hmm.
side storyline that wasn't something that you wanted to do. I guess there were many things. There we go. We'll have to sort that out. Um, she's find her center again. Center yourself.
I'm feeling
and
centered. Thank you.
and yeah, sorry Luna for interrupting, but I guess yeah, there was absolutely nothing, and it was infuriating to see people formulating these opinions, and there was
And
absolutely
they hadn't even played the game. They had just watched some guy talk about it on
Hmm.
YouTube and they were like, okay,
Yeah.
this game absolutely sucks. It's the worst game ever made. Honestly, I played the game at the end. Okay, my initial opinion, this is whole other episode. It was not great. It was not a great Dragon Age game, but it was a good fantasy game. And I didn't feel like LGBT, whatever, all of this was shoved in my face at all. It really
Hmm.
wasn't. I think it was overly like spoken about on social media and like Ahmed was saying, it was this biased opinion that people had. And what's that saying where like sheep follow the herd or the, I don't know what that.
at the end of the day, the bigger
Yeah.
portion of the gaming industry, especially its consumers, are just a bunch of sheep. And I feel like, I kind of want to blame streamers for that. At the end of the day, I mean, Asmon Gold, for example, is a very prime example to use in this particular uh, point that I'm trying to make here is that, again, like I said, I'm not a sheep. Like, I don't care about reviews. I don't care about something else. Like, I wanted to see, for myself, especially with, again, back to Outlaws, when, Outlaws was, essentially when they showcased it and people were like, there was a lot of mixed reviews in that regard. But again, I still spent a lot of money on it because I wanted to see, like, maybe, just maybe, I could be convinced otherwise. Unfortunately, I guess, like Ahmed, I think you are probably going to argue with me here, and I don't want to start a new argument now because I kind of want us to kind of move into not an argument, kind of want to
Yeah.
wrap all of this up. But yeah, I feel like streamers, essentially influencers, they have play such a big role in how we see things, and we watch streamers because
Hmm.
we like what their content, we like their opinions, and we view them very highly. Because they've made it that far, especially like big name streamers. But yeah, I feel like it's their responsibility at the end of the day to kind of you know still convince us as followers, and viewers of channels, to still be able to make our own decisions. And I feel
Hmm.
like we are so we are what's the word I want to use, we expect that they are just going to make the decision for us, because if this person says it, then it has to be bad. There's no other way. So we based our decisions based on what other people decide, and what they view and what their opinions are. And we've just become so you know Im- dependent on people making those decisions for us,
Hmm.
because we don't want to have that financial burden of saying, having that accountability of, I spent 2,000 rand or $200 or whatever games cost these days, $100, etc. And now I wasted this money because it was my own stupid mistake. But it's easier to say, I've now wasted $100 because Asmon Gold said, do not buy the game, or buy this game, it's fantastic, and now I don't enjoy it, or something like that. I'm just using it as an example. So I think it's also kind of a part where we don't want to take accountability, so we just base all our decisions of what other people say and other people, what their opinions are, so that we don't have to take the financial accountability of, okay, I've now officially wasted money that I didn't really have, or I wasted money that I did have, but at the end of the day, we wasted money because this is essentially a bad video game or I did not enjoy it. Just, take responsibility for it. If you don't, if yeah, it's a very challenging thing. Again, like
Mm.
I probably say it with the white bread under the arm, but yeah, I think we just want to continuously blame other people for things, and this is where we are at.
Yeah, I think that what both of you said about people sort of having their minds made up prior to ever touching the game. Um, go- Going back to what I was talking about earlier, um, so in cognitive psychology, we call it anchoring or the anchoring heuristic, which is again it's kind of shortcuts that our minds make. So usually the first piece of information that we get on a particular topic becomes anchored, and that perspective becomes very resistant to subsequent information that will challenge that anchor. And so when we start to see these trailers, or we see the reactions to these trailers by these streamers and by these content creators, it already anchors that perspective in our mind that this game is some kind of woke thing. And look, the whole history of woke is a whole kind of bogus thing because it was again just them constructing boogeymans from nothing. But we can go into that on maybe another episode. Um, but yeah, so these perspectives become anchored, and then when we then go to play the game, we have that anchor rooted in place, and we start to see the game through the anchor. So if you have this anchor in place that's telling you this game is super woke, blah blah blah, blah, you will see a small thing that might confirm that for you, and you'll be like, "What? 100% this thing's woke." And that's another bias called confirmation bias, right? And confirmation even triggers the reward centers in our brain. Like we have this kind of appeal to look for confirming information. So once that anchor's in place, it reshapes the way we experience the game, and it actually robs you of the joy you could have had playing that game. So, so if you're listening, don't buy into the bullshit. And like these two ladies said, you figure it out for yourself and play the game for yourself and let it, give it an honest try. There are some times where criticism of these games and the developers is absolutely valid. And then with this kind of woke spotting and stuff, it's not valid. It's simply a grift. It's these content creators looking to score cheap clicks and cheap views of by making you angry, by telling you that they're taking this all away from you, and it's really emotional. That kind of threat perception is emotional, and that's another heuristic altogether, which is affect and emotion. Um, and then it triggers this kind of threat responses, this kind of seeing the group as being under attack, and it then starts to distinguish who's a real gamer from who's not a real gamer, who's outside of that. And usually, who's outside of that are female characters, people, persons of color, LGBT. But then it also starts to determine whose voice gets heard and whose voice gets silent, whose voice is worth supporting or whose voice should be harassed. And that is where we turn this thing, which is something we're all so passionate about, into something that can be really ugly, something that can be really alienating, really isolating, and yeah, in times often even painful. um, Sorry, I yeah, went off on a tangent, but yeah, and if you're wondering, I am a psychologist, so I'm not just talking shit. um,
Bunch of bullshit.
yeah.
Like
Joking.
Yeah.
actual, he's an actual
He's an
psychologist.
actual psychologist. Yep, I was waiting for you to
um,
ask us how we feel about it, but
yeah, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a therapist. I'm a psychologist, and
all
I
right.
work in media and with misinformation and propaganda. And
check
Yeah, and
out his
hopefully
channels. He's got some YouTube channels and pages and
oh,
stuff.
yeah,
We will drop a link or links to his works in the description below. But yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we all want opinions, but we also don't allow other people to have opinions. It's also what I've seen. People attacking each other for having opinions. In comment sections. I love a comment section. I die for comment sections. But yeah, it's kind of like we want our opinions, but we also don't allow other people their opinions. And then there's a new war starting in the comment wars and opinion wars. Like who is essentially correct. And at the end of the day, I don't think anyone is particularly correct. It's just how we feel. And I think we don't allow other people to feel certain things. And I'm seeing it. I'm saying it. I'm probably very hypocritical by saying it, but. I mean, again, just going back to Veilguard, how many people were attacking each other. It's just, why are we fighting each other? It feels like it's counterintuitive or counter whatever you want to call it. You know, but yeah. Long story short, it's each to their own. I choose not to be a sheep, and if a guy doesn't like a video game, so be it. Don't like it. I'm not going to base my opinions and decisions off what other people say. And yeah, Luna, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just like in sort of closing comments from my side, I just want to highlight that like in overall review bombing is not only a bad thing. It can be a good thing in some cases where it really has the message has been heard by the devs and they've made changes and that they've done things better with it. And I think in that case it's very, very healthy to just get your opinion out there. Otherwise, that's why they have these beta tests and things to improve their games and to cater towards the community. But in cases like this, review bombing it's unnecessary. It's so unnecessary. Gaming is evolving and changing. We're not just seeing these games like the first Assassin's Creed, first Witcher, where it's all just these male protagonists that play this game. If you're a woman or a person of color or a person in the LGBT community, you don't feel represented in this space where you're supposed to get away from life and just relax. So in that case, I feel like review bombing is definitely unnecessary, but it can be good in some other cases. So, yeah.
100%. Like, I think you touched a good point, and again, I'm gonna go back to one of my original points that I've made. Like when we were the weird crowd years ago, we what we wanted was to be accepted. We wanted to be included into something that's not a waste of time, something that was very much frowned upon. I think to some extent it still very much is, but we wanted to be accepted, and now we are fighting each other so much within our own circles that again we kind of defeat the purpose of years back what we wanted to achieve. We wanted to be unified and included and diversified for the most part. We wanted people to become gamers because it was for us the coolest thing ever, and now it's just like we're constantly continuously fighting each other because of having different opinions and views. And I don't think that was essentially the point here. I mean, not of this podcast, but for gamers in general. We wanted to create a space where we can appreciate the arts of what it is. And I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, video games have made us laugh. It made us cry. It made us angry. It brings out, these emotions within us, but I think most importantly, it creates a space for us where we can disconnect from reality and just, live in our own little fantasy worlds, and just experience things that we won't necessarily experience anywhere else, especially if you have a shitty job, you want to kind of get away from that, or you have, deeper personal problems, you kind of want to break away from that, and gaming gave us that, space where we can. I don't want to completely. I use the word disconnect, but disconnect is not completely like shut out from everything, but kind of just take our minds elsewhere, that we don't have to worry about the things that we have to worry about on a daily basis. But yet we are still continuously fighting each other, and creating disruptions within this space, which makes it unpleasant, which makes it to not to be a thing. I've reached gamer block, this year, and it's something that I didn't want to. I've never, in the all the years that I've played video games, I've never reached a point where I had gamer block. Whether it was because of too many gaming options, and maybe it was just to completely kind of get away from, all this negativity that's, involved in the industry itself. And yeah, it should be fun. It should be pleasant. But again, I just decided, fuck it. You know, let's just go out. I'm just gonna do my own thing, and I'm not gonna care about, worry about, the opinions of, the general gamer, etc. And just kind of create that space for myself and make it a fun space for me to be in, because I essentially remember why I'm doing this, because I enjoy it. And I enjoy, removing myself from reality and taking myself into a fantasy world. Not because I don't want to deal with my problems, because I enjoy it. It's nice. I want to be in the creative space of other people. I want to appreciate the art and artistics and everything else of other people. And we should do that. I don't think it's easy creating a video game and just kind of, you know, thrashing, is that the word? Just, people's work. Yeah, I guess we all are entitled to our own opinions, and this was mine. Moving on to just kind of looking at some exciting, releases for the month of October. That's going to be. So we had some very exciting ones. Ghost of Yotei. We spoke about Ghost of Yotei. It was received very, very well. There's a couple of more that I want to mention. Little Nightmares 3. It is also like a very good all-time favorite or classic for a lot of gamers, if you're into that kind of thing. And I think it was kind of the perfect month to release it. If you haven't played Little Nightmares, I would highly recommend you do. I especially enjoyed playing Little Nightmares 1. I haven't had the chance to play Little Nightmares 2. But yeah, it seems like Little Nightmares 3 has been receiving some mixed opinions, price too high, content too little, kind of thing. Ahmed, for you, your dino porn, Jurassic World Evolution 3, coming out
Yes,
in,
yes, yes.
but a whopping 3 days. So that's something to look out for, especially if you're a dinosaur fan.
Pokemon.
Vampire. Yeah, yeah, I will get to that now. The Vampire, the Masquerade, Bloodlines 2 has been up and down. There's been that game has
Oh,
been
I
places.
am
My
waiting for
goodness.
that. I am waiting
21st, you
for
are
that.
gonna have a very busy 21st of October. Let me tell you. There was another one, Battlefield 6. Also was very hyped up, very excited, but it seems like it's also kind of reaching the same fate as 2042. But it seems like it's currently doing better. Outer Worlds 2 also coming out on the 29th. And yeah, and then last one I want to touch on is Pokemon. A very exciting release. Also, I think there was a lot of controversy around Pokemon, the new Pokemon game. Luna, I don't know what the name, exact title is.
Pokemon Legends CA.
Take us through it a little bit.
It's the sequel to Pokemon Legends Arceus. I think with the previous release of Scarlet Violet, especially with the performance issues on Switch 1, people were very sort of on the fence with how this game's gonna run, and there were some initial leaks of windows in the city being represented as JPEG images, and people were not very
No
keen on
way.
that. It's like just flat windows, and it's still in the game. But yeah, anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But the summary is that the game is well received, and it's seems like it's a lot of fun. So happy for them. Although with the Game Freaks bar, that's very low. Um, yeah, their standards are not too high, so it doesn't take much to please Pokemon fans. Just put Pokemon in the game, and they're there. It can look like ass, and they'll still play it. So
And yeah, and I think that's it. Thank you. That yeah, it seems like it's well received so far. Again, there was been some concerns with regards to like what Luna mentioned, not only just the game design but like the overall gameplay. But I think Nintendo did well this year. I mean, with the switch to Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, um, Pokemon, and I think there's a lot more to expect from them. So it seems like it's been received well. Apart from the fact that many other factors to take into consideration there. But yeah, thank you guys. Oh, this has been a valuable discussion. I think we did really really well. Thank you so much for your time specifically. Hopefully everything in the recording is gonna be fine right now. But yeah, speaking of recordings, so this would be our hopefully monthly or even bi-weekly kind of segment that we will publish on our YouTube channel, Control Alt Discuss. We will also drop all the social media links, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatnot, in the description down below with Ahmed's works, all of that, and anything else that you need to know. With that being said, we are also going to start a new series that's kind of going to tie in with this as well. The name's going to stay the same, but we're just going to call the series something different, and it's called The Book Club. Now, the irony here is that we all know what a book club is, where we read books and we discuss the contents of these books, and we are going to do exactly the same, but with video games. So right now we are all busy with Bioshock. I have never played Bioshock. I don't think Luna have played Bioshock. Ahmed, I know you are a big fan of Bioshock, so this was Ahmed's choice. So we are, was it not?
It was my choice.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. It was Luna's
I
choice.
just convinced I convinced Ahmed that it was a good idea, because I'd been saying that I've been wanting to play the game for a while, and the best time to play it is obviously in Spooktober. So here we are.
I stand corrected. So yeah, Luna decided to put us through the pain of, or for me, myself, the agony of playing Bioshock. I'm saying this, I will probably have a very different opinion after I finish the game. So yeah, I think it's going to be like a 4-part series, maybe 5 parts. We'll just kind of see how it goes. But the book club, we will be recording the very first episode soon, I think as soon as tomorrow. Well, nonetheless, tomorrow doesn't really matter now for this point of this episode, but please, how do we say it, like, follow, comment, share if you like what you see. We will also be putting the audio of this podcast onto Spotify. Mom, I've made it to Spotify. She will be so proud. And yeah, so yeah, keep an eye out for updates. Follow us on social media. Like I said, all the links in the description down below for any updates, any news of what's happening. There will be a lot more to come your way. We are very excited to bring you more. And if you like, yeah, just talk about it, and we want to hear your opinion. Do you agree with what we said? Feel free, your opinions and everything is always welcome. We are not limited to, especially, review bomb us if you will. Please don't. No, seriously, don't. And yeah, so we're excited to bring you more stuff. We will probably have a Halloween version of this cool thing we think it's cool. You guys are cool. You are really cool. Ahmed, you are cool. Luna, you are cool. Halloween podcast episode 2. We're really excited. So within the next 2 weeks, we will probably bring you more. And thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your time. And yeah, until next time. That's it.
Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
Bye. Where's the button?